Welcome to the Stress Free Dentist Podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Eric Block. As always, I want to inspire, entertain, and educate you on the best tools and technologies out there. My goal is to help make your practice and career more profitable, efficient, and most importantly, more enjoyable. And check out all of my nonfiction and children's books on Amazon, and check out the stressfreedentist.com for any upcoming events. And if you're feeling you're a dental professional that's burnt out, or you just feel stuck or want to get to that next level, visit the International Academy of Dental Life Coaches or www.iadlc.com, and we'll get you matched up with a life coach that understands dentistry. I also wanted to thank our amazing sponsor, Equa Marketing. They have helped me and my practice over the years to improve with SEO and website performance. And to find out how you can make your practice dominate in your area, go to www.equa.com/MSMSFD to book your complimentary meeting. Again, that's www.ekwa.com/MSMSFD. Hey, everyone, welcome back to another episode. And I am joined by Colin Carr. And today's episode is going to be all about healthcare real estate for dentists. So, Colin, thanks so much for joining us.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
I want to get into all that you do and how you help dentists. But first, how did you even find yourself getting involved with healthcare professionals and dentists and real estate?
Yeah, it's kind of a fun story. I started managing apartments when I was 19 years old. So that was my entrance into real estate. And then did that for a number of years. I got into brokerage in my early 20s. I worked for a gentleman that did mostly like retail tenant reps. So he did Walmart, Wendy's, Blockbuster, like large national retailers that you would know. I did that for a number of years, enjoyed it. But then I had the opportunity to start working with individual business owners. And so I started doing a lot more like individual sole proprietor or individually owned companies. Really enjoyed working with people where I was working directly with the shareholder, stakeholder. I did that for a number of years. And then I had a client that I worked for a lot on the landlord side that bought a medical building, and he asked me to lease it for him. So started doing that for him and started doing a lot of medical deals, really enjoyed it. Decided to make it more of a focus of mine. And I got to the place where I was predominantly healthcare. And what got us to start this company where we're tenant buyer only, healthcare only is I was on the landlord side and had a number of deals that I did where there was a very strong disadvantage from the tenant versus me on the landlord side and the landlord themselves. So I had a couple of deals where large institutional, national, and international landlords, super savvy, know exactly how to play the game. And then we had these individual doctors that had new leases coming to the market where they wanted to lease a new space or they wanted to renew a lease. And I had a couple of deals that I was the landlord broker on where the doctors just got completely manhandled in these deals, and they lost literally hundreds of thousands of dollars because they're paying higher lease rates, higher annual increases. They did not capture even a fraction of the concessions they should have captured, like the free rent, build out allowance, renovation money, all that stuff. And so I remember getting done with a couple of these deals and looking at the difference of what we accomplished for the landlord versus how much money these guys lost. And it was like, again, it was hundreds of thousands of dollars on a number of these deals that happened in a relatively short period of time. And for me, just the light went on that, it's not a fair fight. These doctors they're great people. They care about their community. They care about their staff, their patients. They enjoy what they do. They want to make a difference. But them going up against, landlords that own literally like tens to hundreds of millions of dollars in real estate is not a fair fight. And the problem is these guys didn't even know they're in a fight. Like they just figured, this is how it's done and it's good enough's good enough. But yet these guys were paying. I had one deal where the guy was paying like 3,000 or 4,000 a month more than he should have been if he would have had professional representation and had a strategy. And so after a number of those deals, just for me, the desire was birthed to really help the doctor. So I started this company at the beginning of 2009 that was focused on just the healthcare provider side, so tenant buyer, no conflicts of interest, and we do all things real estate for the doctor. And our tagline is to maximize your profitability through real estate, and that's really what we do. We help doctors, level the playing field and help them save typically a couple $100,000 per deal.
And you are the founder and CEO of Carr, the nationwide leader in healthcare real estate. And what you're doing is you're helping dentists focus on their practice. What I know nothing about real estate. I know nothing about marketing or accounting. So I have specialists in those fields help me so I can do what I do best, which is dentistry. Um, Tell me about, how you're helping dentists. Is it through negotiating their lease? Is it if they're looking to buy a new practice, take over a practice, move? Is it all the above?
Yeah, it's really all of the above. So when we talk about real estate for a healthcare provider, we're talking about commercial, not residential. We're talking about the real estate for their practice, not maybe investment real estate that they lease out to someone else. But you get into the topic of real estate, it's typically the second or third highest expense for the doctor behind payroll. Every once in a while, you get someone who has huge capital equipment, they pay on monthly, or they have a lot of merchandise, and maybe that's more expensive than the real estate and facilities, but it's pretty rare. Usually, real estate's second highest expense behind payroll. And what it comes down to is there's no MSRP on real estate. You could have one building and have 15 tenants in there, and the difference between what one tenant is paying and another tenant could literally be thousands of dollars per month on the same space. The difference of what one tenant receives from the landlord in the likes of free rent, free build out period, what we call a TI or tenant improvement allowance or renovation allowance. One tenant gets literally nothing. The other one gets a $200,000 check in exchange for a long-term lease. So there's all these negotiable deal points that are at play. And if you don't know how to play the game, it's very easy to miss them. And most dentists, most doctors idea of negotiating is just asking for more. Like whatever the lease rate is, they ask for lower. Whatever the concession package is, they ask for more. And that's a really bad way to negotiate. That's not how the pros negotiate. That's not how Starbucks or Chipotle or any Fortune 500 publicly traded company operates. Whether it's retail, office, industrial, nobody plays the game that way. They all have a strategy. They take their real estate very seriously. And so again, we're talking second highest expense behind payroll, and yet you have a dentist who maybe does like who's done one transaction in their career, maybe two or three, going up against professional landlords and listing brokers that negotiate for a living, and then they think they're going to capture the best terms possible. And a lot of times they'll say, well, yeah, well, it's good enough, or like, well, I did my best. Well, your best cost you literally a couple $100,000. And that's not just a couple $100,000. Like you got to go out there then and produce $1 million to pay that $300,000 mistake you made, or you're paying interest on money you shouldn't have borrowed for the build out for a portion of it, or you're paying rent before you're open, or whatever it might be. So we've got all these economic concepts that people don't know how to negotiate properly, but we also have all these non-economic, these business concepts like exclusivity, assignability. When you want to sell your practice, what happens? Who pays for what? If the HVAC goes out on the roof, who pays for that? Who's taking care of janitorial or utilities? There's all these other non-economic things that are worthy of your attention and negotiation, and very few people understand how to negotiate them. So it's the economic side, it's the business side. Ultimately, what we talk about is you can spend 30 to 40 hours of your time trying to figure it out, or you can hire a professional. Like you can do your own taxes online for less than it costs to hire a CPA. But if you don't know the most recent tax law, did you probably miss the chance to bonus depreciate or write off tens of thousands of dollars of additional expenses, or whatever it might be. So whether it's marketing, whether it's legal, whether it's accounting, real estate, construction, architecture, it's a really similar motto. It's hire the best people who all they do is live and breathe that concept or idea, and let them take care of it for you, and capture way better results, save a ton of time, eliminate headaches and pitfalls, get peace of mind. And it's the same thing. So that's what we do. We basically handle all the site selection, the due diligence, the demographics, finding the property, and then also negotiating the property terms, and then basically assembling the entire team that you need to complete a project. And we hold the doctor's hand from start to finish.
Yeah, I mean, if I was going to sell my practice, uh, to a DSO, let's say, I'm not going to just represent myself and try to negotiate myself. Or I don't want to do my own taxes because I have a professional uh, accountant that specializes in dentistry doing my taxes for me. Marketing, I have a specialized marketing team. These are things that I just don't know about. Do you find that dentists often make a mistake in trying to negotiate for themselves?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's the number one thing that happens with real estate. It's not that they're hiring bad agents or brokers in the vast majority of scenarios. It's the fact that they're just trying to do it themselves. And just because you can do something yourself doesn't mean that it's the right way to do it. Like the question of, can you drive around and call on properties? Yes. Can you email a broker saying, send me a brochure or what do you have available? Yes. Can you submit your own proposal? Yes. But are you losing a couple $100,000 in most transactions? Yes. Like I can pull my own tooth. Like I know how to extract my own tooth. Is that the right game plan? Most likely not. I mean, there's a lot of things you can just because you can do them, you don't do them. I could give myself stitches if I cut myself. That's not the right game plan. There's a better way to do things. So, the question of can you get a lease signed or do your own deal for sure? Will it cost you probably 100, 200, 300 grand? Absolutely. And again, most doctors don't realize that much is on the line. They just think everything's relative and it's all fairly similar. It's not. Like there's these massive differences in how these deals are structured. Like you even take a concept like a 3% annual increase versus a 4% increase over a 10-year period, and it's tens of thousands of dollars. Like one little concept like three versus four, two and a half versus three and a half, you know, can the landlord pass through or push other costs through the operating expenses? Like there's all these little things that are out there that if you don't understand what you're doing, they add up to a lot of money. So if it was just one of them, maybe fair enough. Maybe you lose 20, 30 grand on a deal over 10 years. Again, it's 3, 4 thousand a year. I can live with it. But you add up a couple of thousand in like 4 or 5 or 6 places over a 10-year period. It's a lot of money. So
Wow. And what are you seeing that, we talked about some mistakes. What are you seeing that the successful dentists are doing out there?
well, let's talk about strategy as a whole, because most doctors or dentists don't have a strategy. They just pick a property, they like it or they fall in love, they call on it, and they show all their cards to the listing broker. Like when you are a doctor and you don't have a broker calling on properties, or you show up and look at properties by yourself, you're communicating instantly that you don't know what you're doing, because Chipotle is not showing up with some random guy that manages the Chipotle. Starbucks doesn't have like the branch manager showing up. They have a real estate professional that handles the entire process. Same thing with Lockheed Martin or any other large company. So when you show up as a doctor, you're tipping your hand instantly that you don't know what you're doing. You don't have a strategy. You're not going to go and work the entire market. You don't have time. Like if you're a practicing dentist, you don't have time to work the market, to do 15, 20 hours of due diligence. You don't have the market intelligence. You don't have the demographic software. You don't have the heat mapping or competition software. So the listing broker or landlord knows right off the bat that you're an amateur, like you're not a pro. That's not what the pros do. So you don't have a strategy to start. When you don't have a strategy, the landlords are not going to get as competitive as if they believe they're competing with multiple other, landlords that have a desire to make the deal. So the idea of strategy, people say, well, what does that mean in real estate? Here's what it means. If you have a strategy, you hire a professional to represent your interests. They leverage their market knowledge, their relationships, the data they have access to, and they go to market and they look at any property that meets the criteria. They whittle it down to the top 5, 6, 7 properties, depends on the market. They show you those properties, and then they start negotiating simultaneously on 3 or 4 properties on a non-binding basis. And again, most people have like a residential mindset. Like you find a property you like, you submit an offer. If the seller says yes, you're under contract. Commercial real estate is not negotiated the same way. You typically negotiate in commercial real estate with letters of intent or requests for proposal, and you go back and forth literally 3 or 4 rounds of negotiation. And one landlord comes with a good lease rate, but they don't come with a good TI allowance, or one comes with a good lease rate, but not a good free rent package. And you're leveraging one offer against the other. There's a high level of communication. It's very factual. It's not emotional. You can be emotionally tied to a property, but you still do the negotiating factually. And so in that process, landlords know that you are an expert. They know they can't offer you something that's completely irrelevant or that's not competitive compared to the market. And so when they know that you've got multiple options, they know that you've got an expert advising you, and they know that you are not going to get played for the fool because you are looking at a bunch of different properties that are very competitive or similar, they get a lot more aggressive. Like the margins come down, the fluff goes away, and you get to deals and you get to terms that you don't get to if you're just out there asking for a better deal. So the strategy of having multiple properties, of seeing the market, one of the other benefits is you're not wondering if you got a good deal. Like nobody wants to buy something and then wonder later on, could they have got it for a lower price? Like in a scenario of a lease, you get one crack at it every like 7 or 10 years. And you're locked and loaded with the personal guarantee on the vast majority of real estate deals you do. So you sign a bad lease because you didn't hire the right person or take the time to do it properly. Like the buyer's remorse is with you for the next 10 years. Like you can't undo it. And so that's a bad place to be if you would have just simply hired someone to help you with the process. So it's one of those things where, again, try to use the best analogies I can. In commercial real estate, commissions are paid by the landlord or seller. So you're not paying the commissions as a buyer. So you're not saving any money as a buyer or tenant by not hiring a broker. You're going to waste 30 to 40 hours of your time. And so the best analogy I can give is, imagine a patient has a really good dental insurance policy and they've got a couple $1,000s worth of benefits that they have not used. And every dentist calls that patient and says, listen, get in my office before the year's over. You've got money that if you don't use it, the insurance company's just going to keep the money. I don't get it. You don't get the benefit. And the person says, no, I'm just going to do whatever myself. I'll take a picture of my own teeth, or I'll do whatever I can do myself. It's a use it or lose it concept. You don't hire a broker. You don't save money in commissions. You waste a ton of your time. You lose this huge benefit that's available to you, and then you get an inferior result. So those are the kind of things that a lot of doctors don't know. I can give you, 5 or 6 more areas where doctors mess up on timing or on communication or on things they do, but the posture, the strategy, and then just misunderstanding how things cost or how they're priced, especially with commissions, those are the areas where most dentists just unfortunately don't have the information they need to do it the right way or make a good decision.
What about leasing versus buying or owning property? Is it, it just depends on the situation, or would you always recommend to own versus lease? What are you seeing out there?
Yeah, this is a really good topic because you will have some, consultants, some practice management groups, or some larger like DSOs, like they'll have an emphatic, like, we never do this, like we never own, we always lease, or you have to own, you can't lease. Like you'll see people that are diehard on either side of the conversation. For us, it's a very simple answer. Let's go look at all your options. Like, let's
Mhm.
not predetermine if you should lease or own because there's too many variables. There's some markets where if you want to own, it might cost you like 10,000 a month more than it does the lease. And then we have to decide, is that worth it? It still might be, but you have to realize like there is a premium for owning. In other markets, you can purchase a property, pay for a brand new build out, state of the art, class A finishes, exactly what you want. And the effective cost of owning can be the same or less than leasing after you factor in tax deductions, depreciation, principal pay down. If that's the case, owning is a no-brainer. So I would go in there and say this. I love ownership. I love owning real estate. I think it's fantastic. It's a tremendous investment. It's an amazing way to diversify your net worth. You're building a practice that has tangible value that you can sell, and you're building an asset with real estate that has tangible value and asset that you can sell as well. So if you can own commercial real estate and it works for you as far as the down payment, the monthly cash flow, all the other factors like the location, the actual building itself. I'm a huge fan of owning real estate, but there's no one size fits all. And there's some people will call and say, I have to own, and we'll go to market, and there's not a single property for them to purchase in the area they want to be. And then other times we go to market and say, listen, you're currently paying 6,000 a month to lease. It's a great property. If you want to purchase, your only option is like a $6 million building. So if you want to go from 6,000 to like 36,000 a month, like we can help you do that, but I don't think you're going to get the same value. Like if you got an extra 30,000 a month sitting there, I mean, you could probably do just as well in another form of an investment with less risk or whatever you might say. So no one size fits all. If you can own, I think it's a tremendous investment, but you really need to look at it, let the numbers determine, which makes sense. And then there's also times when if you're doing a startup, if the landlord's going to pay for a portion of your build out, if you don't pay any money while it's being built out, and then you get free rent even once your lease starts, and that gives you flexibility to maybe expand in size or to relocate in the future. There are seasons where leasing can make a ton of sense. It can give you the start you need, help you be more profitable, give you a higher cash flow, less liability, less debt. There's times when startups or other practices, it makes a ton of sense to lease. But again, no one size fits all on that one.
And I imagine that the timing of the market, interest rates, the inventory out there, whether this is you're looking for an urban, suburban, or rural spot, like all these factors tie into the decision, correct?
Absolutely. Yep, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of markets where like if you're in a certain area, it's really desirable. Again, there might not be a single property for sale. It's just commercial real estate is as a whole is like 90% plus our leases, less than 10% are our purchase opportunities. So whereas in residential, like the vast majority of houses are for sale, not for lease. Commercial real estate is the exact opposite. The vast majority are for lease, not for sale. And then you get stuff that is for sale and it can oftentimes be way too expensive for the doctor because it's typically multi-tenant buildings or a multi-unit retail strip center or a big power center. And so there's times when just it doesn't make sense.
All right, Colin, I want to end it with two final questions. Number one, how do we find out more about the Carr Real Estate Group? And number two, what advice would you give to the young dentists out there?
So best way to get in touch with us is our website, and that's carr.us. So carr.us. You can click in the upper right-hand corner of the nav bar to find an agent in your area, start a conversation. If you want to know how your current lease compares to the market, if you want to do a free lease evaluation, if you want to do a quick search on are there any good properties in my market for sale, like we can do a lot of information, competition studies, heat mapping, demographics. Like if you just want to start a conversation and get some data, you come to the right place. The best advice I could give anybody is just realize that this is a high dollar negotiation with a lot on the line, and you're not saving any money by doing it yourself. It's not like U-Haul, like where you can go get a truck yourself, move yourself and save, as every U-Haul says, move yourself and save. This is a scenario where, like the insurance analogy, money is set aside in every deal for a real estate broker. And when you don't use one, they just keep the money or the listing broker gets a double commission. So it's one of those things where you're not saving money, you're not an expert in this area. So just take the advice of the most successful people in the world, hire people that are more qualified than you that can educate you, advise you, protect you, and help you make the best choice and decision for your practice and for your future. So if it's an attorney, if it's marketing, if it's a practice management coach, whatever the area is, hire the best people. And if you do it with real estate, it truly will save you a couple $100,000 per deal. And that's money that can go to investing in better equipment and technology, hiring better staff, picking a better location, or it's money you just put in your pocket and save for the future, or you retire sooner, whatever it might be. But if every 10 years you could save a couple $100,000, like it's not hard to figure out that that is worth, taking a few minutes of your time to find someone who's really good to help you the process.
Oh, that's awesome advice. Colin Carr, great episode. So many great nuggets. Thank you so much for joining us. Thanks again for listening to the Stress Free Dentist podcast. And don't hesitate to get in touch with me at info@thestressfreedentist.com. And if you haven't already, please subscribe on your favorite platform and leave us a review. Until the next episode, I'm Dr. Eric Block, the Stress Free Dentist.